get up on your feet. What you need to do is catch up with them. Bounce, get up on your feet and help me get it.
Mason is now serving a 7-year jail sentence for the attack on Jemma Jemma Cadle, now 36, from Oxford, was in a relationship that became abusive. A woman whose abusive ex-partner subjected her to a 2-hour violent attack before forcing her to examine the injuries he'd inflicted in a mirror, has opened up about her ordeal. Jemma Cadle, now 36, from Headington in Oxford, told how she came to be petrified of her one-time boyfriend Dewayne Mason, 40, as his jealous and controlling nature ultimately turned to violence. A pattern of threatening behaviour culminated in an horrific attack on February 15, 2015, when Mason beat and choked mother of 2 Jemma for 2 hours, dragged her around the room by her hair, and even forced her to examine her own bloodied face in the mirror. Jemma, who until then had not reported Mason's abuse for fear she would not be believed, was left with a cracked rib, a punctured lung and severe bruising and swelling. In new documentary uncovering intimate partner abuse, Jemma reveals how she finally found the courage to leave Mason, who is currently serving a 7-year jail sentence for the brutal attack, and rebuild her life. Jemma explains in the show how Mason, who she met when they were growing up on the same council estate, came to insist on knowing her whereabouts at all times, once calling her 180 times in one night when he couldn't get a hold of her. He would also bang on the door in the middle of the night and accuse her of sleeping with other men, and he attempted to strangle her during arguments more than once. Mason would choke his then-partner, when in a jealous rage, attempt to force himself on her, and try to force her to take drugs, prompting her to break it off. But still Jemma did not tell police for fear they would not believe her, because they had been in a relationship. It was only after that fateful February night in 2015, when an enraged Mason beat Jemma for 2 hours in a brutal, sustained attack that left her with a cracked rib and a punctured lung, she found the strength to speak out. He had arrived at her door in the early hours of the morning, demanding to be let in and threatening to kill her. When, desperate to protect her children from a previous relationship, she tried to get him to leave, he launched his attack on a stunned Jemma, who says she was convinced he would kill her. "I knew what he was capable of in a sense anyway, but this was a whole other extreme," she says on the show. "This is what happens when I don't conform. When someone strangles you until you are unconscious, when you wake up, and they pound you in your face, you don't think you are going to get out alive." Mason was sentenced to 7 years in jail for grievous bodily harm in August of the same year. Jemma and Mason had known one another for a number of years before they became a couple, having grown up together on the same council estate. According to Jemma, he was a loving boyfriend when they first got together, but the relationship quickly became toxic. He started demanding to know where Jemma was at all times and would constantly try to get in touch, once calling her an unanswered phone 180 times on the same day. If he couldn't get in touch, he would turn up at her house unannounced or wait for her outside her children's school. Jemma says the first red flag came the first time showed up at her house in the middle of the night after being unable to get a hold of her, to accuse her of being unfaithful. That was the first warning sign for me, Jemma says. From then, Mason's controlling behaviour grew worse. The phone calls became more frequent, and he would stalk her social media accounts, demanding to know the identities of men she had spoken to years before he met her. When he came over, he would attempt to strangle her, try to have sex with her against her will, and try to force her to take drugs. Eventually she found the courage to break up with him, and even went abroad with her children for a while to escape his abuse. But when he continued to bombard her with calls, and even tried to get her family to take him back, Jemma decided she had to come up with a way to protect herself. After realizing that, so long as she didn't let any more than 18 missed calls from Mason rack up on her phone before answering him, he wouldn't come to her house, and she wouldn't get hurt. But her horrific ordeal in February 2015 finally put an end to Mason's reign of terror over his former girlfriend. Once Mason was jailed, Jemma decided to continue her education and went on to achieve a first-class degree in sociology and criminology. She is now studying for a master's degree in the same subject and is hoping to do a PhD in intimate sexual coercion. Jemma said, "I think there's so much stigma and misunderstanding around these things, so I hope to use my experience to help it make sense for other people."